Ever find yourself, listening to the news about the economy and thinking, okay, I think I know what GDP means or inflation, but how does it all actually connect? Or you hear about some new disruptive technology and wonder, what does that really mean for me, for my job, beyond just the buzzword? If you're looking to really connect those dots, get that strategic edge in understanding the language of business and economics, well, you're in the right place.
Yeah, it's easy to get swamped, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's just so much jargon. So today, we're aiming to cut through some of that noise. This deep dive, it's kind of your shortcut. Not just to know the terms, but to really get the underlying mechanics of how business and economics actually work.
That's absolutely the mission. We've gathered, well, a whole stack of sources. Think of it like a curated glossary of the really core concepts. And our job today is to pull out the most important bits, connect those dots for you, and basically hand you a mental map. A map for navigating this world, which, let's be honest, can often feel pretty complex.
Exactly. And by the end of this discussion, you won't just be recalling definitions. That's not the goal. You'll hopefully grasp why these concepts matter fundamentally, how they link together, and, where they fit in the bigger picture. The dynamics of economies and businesses. We want to go way beyond just definitions to give you some genuine, maybe even actionable insight.
Okay, so let's start big. How do societies, anywhere from a tiny village to a huge global power, decide the fundamentals? What to produce, how, who gets it? It seems like it all kicks off from this one unavoidable economic truth. Economists call it the basic economic problem.
That's right. And what's fascinating here is that at its heart, economics exists because of this universal dilemma. Humans, well, we have essentially unlimited wants and needs. We always want more or something different.
Yeah.
But society has limited economic resources, just not enough stuff, time, money, materials to go around for everything everyone wants. This fundamental imbalance, that's what creates scarcity.
Scarcity.
Right. We simply don't have enough to satisfy every single desire. And you see it everywhere. Even the richest countries face these tough choices, right? Like, how much do we spend on healthcare versus fixing roads? That scarcity in action is the foundational challenge.
So scarcity forces choices. And how a country actually makes those choices answers those core questions. What, how, for whom, that basically defines its economic system.
Precisely, yeah. And we see different models across the globe. You've got a command economy where the government pretty much owns and controls the key resources. Think historical examples like the Soviet Union. Then, on the other end of the spectrum, there's the market economy. That really empowers individuals. Resources are owned and controlled by the people, by private businesses. Most countries today, though, including the US, UK, most of Europe, they operate as a mixed economy.
The blend of the two.
Exactly. Strategically combining bits of government control and private ownership. The mix varies a lot, of course. And just for context, there's also the traditional economy. You see that sometimes in less developed areas, maybe rural communities, production there is often dictated more by custom, by history, less by markets or government plans.
Okay, so we've got these systems set up to deal with scarcity, but how do we actually track how well it's working? Is the economy healthy? Is it growing? What are those key signs, those indicators economists are always watching?
Right, so now we're talking about measuring economic health. And the big one, the one you hear about constantly, is gross domestic product, GDP. It sounds technical, but it's basically the total market value, everything produced, all the final goods and services made within a country's borders, usually over a year. Think of it like the country's economic report card for the year.
And sometimes you hear about GDP per person.
Yeah, GDP per capita. That just divides the total GDP by the population. It gives you a sense of the average economic output per individual. It offers maybe a more granular view of productivity and living standards, though it's still an average, obviously.
Got it. And then there's the constant talk about prices. Inflation seems to be everywhere in the news cycle. Sometimes deflation, though less often. Why are these such a big deal?
Inflation. It's that continuous increase in the general level of prices. Your money just doesn't buy as much as it used to. What's really key here is that a little bit of inflation, say 2%, isn't always bad. It can signal a healthy, growing economy. People are spending, businesses are investing. But when it gets too high, runaway inflation. It acts like a hidden tax. It eats away at your savings, your purchasing power, really hurts people on fixed incomes.
And what causes it? Is it just one thing?
Not usually. It could be demand pull, basically, too much money chasing too few goods. Everyone wants to buy, but there isn't enough stuff. Or it could be cost push. When the costs for businesses go up, like energy prices or wages, they pass those costs on to consumers through higher prices. And the opposite, deflation, where prices are actually falling. Sounds good, right?
You'd think so. Cheaper stuff.
Yeah, but it can be really damaging. If
Yeah.
people expect prices to keep falling, they delay spending. Why buy today if it's cheaper tomorrow? And that can stall the whole economy. Discourages spending, discourages investment. It can be quite crippling.
Okay, so these numbers, GDP, inflation, they don't just stay flat, they move, right, in cycles. That leads us to the business cycle, I imagine.
Exactly. The business cycle. It's this natural ebb and flow of economic activity. It typically moves through 4 phases. First, you've got prosperity. That's the peak, the good times. High employment, people are spending, businesses are doing well, GDP growth is strong, feels good.
Definitely feels good, but history tells us it doesn't last forever. So what comes next?
Well, inevitably, things tend to cool off. That leads to recession. That's marked by a significant decline in economic activity. You see it in falling GDP, lower income, rising unemployment, slower production, weaker sales. Things slow down. If that slowdown becomes really severe and prolonged, high unemployment persists, sales are weak, lots of businesses fail, that's when you might enter a depression, the lowest point. Much rarer, thankfully.
Like the Great Depression.
Precisely. And then, hopefully after the downturn, we hit recovery. This is the phase where things start picking back up. Unemployment begins to fall. People start spending again. Businesses invest. GDP starts to rise. The economy is getting back on its feet, building momentum towards the next period of prosperity. Understanding these cycles helps make sense of the headlines.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's the big picture, the economic landscape. Let's zoom in a bit now to the business blueprint.
Yeah.
How are actual businesses structured, managed? Let's start simple. Someone has an idea, they want to launch something small. What are their basic legal options?
Well, the simplest form is the proprietorship. Sometimes people just call it an establishment. It's owned and run by one person. Total control, which is great, but also total personal liability for any debts or lawsuits. That's the downside. If you decide to bring in a co-founder, maybe one or more partners, you often form a partnership. Usually there's a written agreement outlining responsibilities, how profits are shared, that sort of thing.
But that personal liability thing sounds risky. How do people limit their personal risk as the business grows?
Yeah, that's a huge consideration. That's where structures like the limited liability partnership or LLP come in. It offers partners protection. Their personal assets, like their house or car, are generally shielded from the business's debts. Management involvement can vary, though. Then you have the limited liability company, the LLC. This one's really popular, especially for smaller businesses. Why? Because it gives you that liability protection like a corporation, but often with simpler setup and potentially more flexible tax options. Kind of like a partnership. You generally don't need the complex paperwork like articles of incorporation or corporate bylaws that bigger corporations require.
Okay, and then the big one, the corporation. That sounds much more formal.
It is. A corporation is legally distinct. It's treated as a separate entity from its owners, like a legal person in a way. It's formed through formal documents filed with the state. Ownership is represented by shares of stock held by shareholders, and it's managed by a board of directors elected by those shareholders who oversee the big decisions, strategy, finances. The whole framework for how that corporation is run, the rules, the processes, that's called corporate governance. It's all about accountability, making sure it's run properly.
And there are corporations not focused on profit, too.
Right. You also have nonprofit corporations. Their main goal isn't making money for owners, but rather serving some kind of public benefit. Charity, education, arts, things like that. They still have structures and boards, but their mission is different.
So once you've got the structure sorted, you need people to actually run it. Management. What are the core jobs, the functions of a manager?
Good question. Management, at its core, is about achieving the organization's goals, but specifically achieving them through people and using resources effectively. It usually breaks down into 4 key functions. First, there's planning. That's analyzing information, figuring out where you want to go, setting goals, and how you'll get there. Then comes organizing, arranging the work, the resources, the people needed to actually carry out the plan. Sometimes you'll see an organization chart visualizing this. Third is directing. This is the leadership part. Motivating people, guiding them, ensuring they're working effectively towards the goals. And finally, controlling. This is about checking progress. Are we hitting our targets? Assessing performance, and if things are off track, taking corrective action. Plan, organize, direct, control.
And managers don't all do that the same way, do they? There are different management styles.
Definitely not. You see distinct approaches. There's authoritative management. This style is more top-down, direct, controlling. The manager makes most decisions with less employee input. It can work well in a crisis, maybe, or when speed is critical. On the other hand, you have delegative management. This is much more collaborative. Managers involve employees in decisions, empower them to take ownership. This often leads to more innovation, higher morale, better engagement, but might be slower. And of course, many managers use a mixed management approach, blending styles depending on the situation, the team, the specific task. There's no single best style always.
Makes sense. So management is about getting things done, but then there's leadership. That feels a bit different. It's about motivating people, right? What kind of influence do leaders use?
Yeah, leadership and management overlap, but they're not identical. Leadership is really about inspiring action, motivating individuals and groups to achieve common goals. And they do that through various types of influence. There's formal influence, which just comes from the job title, the position in the hierarchy. Your boss has formal influence. But often the most effective leaders also wield informal influence. This comes from their personality, their charisma, how much people respect them personally. You also see expert influence people follow because they recognize the leader knows their stuff, has valuable skills or knowledge. Identity influence is about trust and respect. People follow because they identify with the leader, their values. Position influence is simply the ability to get things done because of your role and the authority that comes with it. And reward influence is about the leader's ability to give rewards, promotions, bonuses, recognition, or withhold them. Truly great leaders usually blend these, adapting their influence style to the situation and the people involved.
Okay, fascinating. So we've covered the big economic picture, business structures, management, leadership. Let's get down to the people actually doing the work, the human element. We hear the term human resources a lot. What does that encompass?
Right. Human resources, or HR, fundamentally refers to the people who produce the goods and services within an organization or an economy. The whole group of people who are either working or actively looking for work, that's the workforce, or sometimes called the labor force. And a key function within HR is employee relations, basically, maintaining that positive, productive relationship between the employer and the employees. To figure out who fits where, businesses do job analysis. That means identifying all the duties, skills, and requirements for a specific role. This helps with hiring, training, and also links into things like individual career planning, how people map out their professional journey, often using tools like a resume to showcase their experience.
And, of course, the reason most people work, compensation. How does that work beyond just getting a paycheck?
Yeah, compensation is the broad term for all the money paid for work. Usually we think of salary and wages. A straight salary is that fixed amount you get paid each week or month, regardless of hours worked, usually for professional roles. A time wage is paid per hour worked, common in many service and production jobs. But many companies also use incentive systems to really motivate performance beyond just showing up, like commission, where salespeople earn a percentage of their sales, or piece rate, where workers get paid for each unit they produce. And a really common hybrid now is base plus incentive. You get a guaranteed base salary or wage, plus extra pay based on hitting specific targets or goals.
And it's definitely not just about the direct cash, is it? Benefits seem like a huge part of the equation nowadays.
Oh, absolutely huge. Benefits are all those forms of compensation that aren't direct pay. Health insurance, retirement plans like 401ks, paid time off, life insurance, maybe even tuition reimbursement. They're a massive part of the total compensation package and really crucial for attracting and keeping good employees and for their overall well-being.
And speaking of how people work, things have changed so much. We used to think mainly full-time employee, maybe part-time employee or a temporary employee for short gigs. But flexibility is key now, right?
Massively so. The traditional model still exists, of course. Full-time usually means around 40 hours a week, often with full benefits. Part-time is fewer hours. Benefits might vary. Temporary is for a specific limited duration. But now you have so many flexible options. FlexPlace means working away from the main office. Think remote work, home offices, co-working spaces. Super common now. Flex time gives employees some choice over their start and end times, maybe around a core set of hours when everyone needs to be available. Job sharing is interesting. One full-time position is split between two people, each working part-time, coordinating their efforts. And some companies offer personal time. Maybe a few hours a month employees can use for appointments or errands without dipping into vacation time. It's all about adaptability.
Yeah, that flexibility seems key. Now, when we think about the actual workforce, we sometimes still hear older terms like blue collar and white collar. Are those still relevant?
They still get used, though the lines are blurring significantly. Traditionally, blue-collar workers were associated with manual labor, physical work, often operating machinery, think manufacturing, construction. And white-collar workers were more office-based, doing mental work, processing information managers, accountants, administrators. But with automation, AI, the rise of the service and knowledge economy, these distinctions are becoming less rigid. Many jobs now involve a mix of skills. Unfortunately, economic shifts or company performance can lead to tough workforce decisions. Downsizing is when a company makes a planned reduction in staff, usually to cut costs or improve efficiency. And if an employment relationship ends, it might be a termination, often for performance and conduct reasons, or a layoff, which is usually due to lack of work or changing business needs and can be temporary or permanent.
Understood. Okay, let's shift focus now to market dynamics. How do businesses actually reach their customers? How does competition play out? And how has the digital world just completely changed the game? Let's start with the basics. Where does exchange happen?
It all happens in the marketplace, and that's not just a physical place anymore, right? It's anywhere goods and services are exchanged. Could be a store, could be online, could be an app. The key players are the consumer. That's the person who buys and uses the goods or services. And the producers, the businesses or individuals who decide what's available, who make or offer the goods and services. And we're talking about tangible goods, things you can touch, like a phone or a car, versus intangible services, activities performed for you, like getting financial advice or a haircut. It's this constant interaction of buyers and sellers.
And where there are buyers and sellers, there's usually competition. How does that shape the market? Are there different kinds?
Oh, definitely. Competition is that fundamental rivalry between businesses trying to attract the same customers. When one business does a better job of meeting customer needs, maybe through better price, quality, service, they gain a competitive advantage. That's the edge. We see different market structures based on competition. A monopoly is rare, but it's when one single company controls the entire market. Think maybe your local utility company sometimes. High barriers keep others out. An oligopoly is more common, just a few large firms dominate the market. Think airlines or mobile phone providers. Their actions really impact each other. Then there's monopolistic competition. Lots of businesses, but they differentiate their products slightly. Think restaurants or clothing stores, similar products, but each tries to stand out with branding or features. And finally, perfect competition, or pure competition, is more of a theoretical ideal. Many small buyers and sellers, identical products, no one can influence the price. Maybe some agricultural markets get close.
So with all that competition, how do businesses actually get their products noticed and bought? That sounds like the job of marketing.
Exactly. And marketing is much more than just ads on TV. It's the whole process. Creating, communicating, delivering, and exchanging offerings that actually have value for customers, partners, society. It's strategic. A company develops a marketing strategy, which is their specific plan for how they'll use marketing to achieve their goals. A huge part of that is the brand, the name, term, design, symbol that identifies a seller's products and differentiates them. And the brand name is the part you can say, think Coca-Cola, Apple, Nike, instantly recognizable. Then you have selling, which is the direct personal communication with potential customers to persuade them to buy. And promotion, which is broader, all the techniques used to inform, persuade, or remind customers about your product. Advertising, public relations, etc. Sales promotion fits under promotion. Those are the short-term incentives to encourage immediate purchase, like sales, coupons, contests.
Okay, and the internet didn't just change promotion. It seems like it fundamentally changed how businesses even operate, their whole business model.
Completely. A business model is just the company's plan for making money. How does it create value? How does it deliver that value? And how does it capture some of that value as profit? We used to talk mainly about business to business, or B2B companies selling to other companies, like a parts supplier selling to a car manufacturer, and business to consumer, B2C companies selling directly to us, the end consumers, like Amazon or your local supermarket. But the internet blew that wide open. Now we have consumer to business, C2B. Think about maybe a freelance graphic designer offering services to companies through an online platform the consumer initiates. And consumer to consumer, C2C. That's huge now. Platforms like eBay or Etsy, where individuals buy and sell directly with each other online.
Right. And the whole umbrella term for this online activity is e-business. And social media seems inseparable from it now.
Yeah, e-business or electronic business is really any business process conducted online. Selling, customer service, collaboration, and social media has become a massive part of that. Those online platforms where people and businesses connect, share information, ideas, content. You've got company blogs for sharing expertise, podcasts like this one for audio, video content, media sharing sites,
Instagram, YouTube, social content sites like Reddit or Pinterest, wikis for collaborative knowledge building, online forums for discussions, even social games. All these tools power social media marketing, using these platforms to connect with customers, build brand awareness, drive sales, provide support, and often there's a dedicated social media community manager whose job it is to manage that presence, engage with the audience, be the voice of the brand online.
Okay, from the digital world, let's widen the lens again to global horizons. International trade, finance that crosses borders, and the technologies shaping the future. First, what's the basic distinction between international business and just plain domestic business?
Pretty straightforward, actually. Domestic business happens entirely within one country's borders, making something here, selling it here. International business, which you also hear called foreign trade or world trade, involves activities that cross those national borders, buying from, selling to, investing in other countries, taking your business global.
So countries buy and sell from each other constantly. We hear about imports and exports. How does that balance out?
Right. Imports are goods and services bought from other countries and brought in. Think electronics from Asia or maybe wine from France. Exports are goods and services sold to other countries, sent out. Maybe American software sold in Europe or agricultural products shipped overseas. The difference between the total value of a country's exports and its total imports is called the balance of trade. If a country imports more than it exports in value, it has a trade deficit, more money flowing out for goods than coming in. If it exports more than it imports, that's a trade surplus, more money flowing in.
Is that the whole picture, just trade in goods? Or is there more to the money flow?
There's definitely more. The balance of payments is the bigger picture. It tracks all the money flowing into a country versus all the money flowing out over a certain period. This includes imports and exports, yes, but also things like international investments, foreign aid, money spent by tourists, financial transfers. It's the total flow. A negative or unfavorable balance of payments means more money is leaving the country overall than coming in. This can put pressure on the country's currency and suggest economic challenges. A positive or favorable balance of payments means more money is flowing in overall. And all of this is hugely influenced by the exchange rate, the price of one currency in terms of another. Like how many euros does it take to buy one US dollar? That rate constantly fluctuates in the foreign exchange market based on supply and demand. Plus, countries can build up foreign debt, the total amount they owe to other countries or international institutions.
It sounds like trade should be free-flowing, but governments often put up trade barriers. Why do they do that? What are they?
They do. Often it's to protect their own domestic industries from foreign competition, or sometimes for political leverage. A common one is a tariff, which is basically a tax levied on imported goods. Makes them more expensive for consumers, helping local producers compete. A quota is a physical limit on the quantity of a specific good that can be imported or exported during a period, restricts the volume directly. And the most extreme is an embargo, a complete ban on trading specific products or even all trade with a particular country, usually for political reasons. These barriers generally mean higher prices and fewer choices for consumers, though.
So if barriers exist, how do countries try to encourage more trade?
They work together. They negotiate free trade agreements, where participating countries agree to reduce or eliminate tariffs and other barriers among themselves. Think NAFTA, now USMCA, or the EU single market. You also have free trade zones. These are specific geographic areas, often near ports or airports, where goods can be imported duty-free, maybe processed or assembled, and then re-exported without facing the usual tariffs. A step further is a common market or economic community. Members eliminate internal trade barriers, allow workers and money to move freely between countries, and often coordinate broader economic policies. The EU is the prime example. Countries also succeed in trade by leveraging their strengths. An absolute advantage means a country can produce something more cheaply or efficiently than any other country. Rare, but possible. More common is comparative advantage. This means a country can produce a good or service at a lower opportunity cost than others. It's more efficient for them to specialize in that, even if another country is absolutely better at everything. This drives specialization in trade. And fundamentally, good infrastructure, reliable transportation, communication networks, energy supply is essential to support all this international trade. Businesses also use strategies like licensing, selling another company the right to use their brand name, patent, or technology in a foreign market.
When a company does go global, is it one size fits all? Or do they tailor things?
Good question. It varies. A global strategy treats the world as one largely single market. They sell basically the same product with the same marketing message everywhere. Think high-end luxury goods, maybe some software, focuses on consistency and efficiency, but a multinational strategy takes a different approach. It treats each country or region as a distinct market. They'd adapt their products, services, marketing, even operations to fit local tastes, customs, regulations. Think McDonald's offering different menu items in India versus the US. More complex, but potentially more locally relevant.
Okay, shifting gears slightly, but still global in reach often. Funding. How do businesses, especially new ones or those looking to grow, get the capital they need?
Capital is a broad term, but fundamentally it's the money, equipment, property, the resources needed to generate wealth or run the business. Traditional routes include getting loans from banks, or they might get supplier credit, where suppliers let them buy materials now and pay later. We distinguish between short-term financing, money needed for less than a year, usually for day-to-day operations like inventory or payroll, and long-term financing, which funds major assets that last many years, buildings, land, heavy machinery. Often involves larger loans or issuing bonds. For brand new companies, securing startup financing is often the first major hurdle.
And that startup funding often comes from outside investors, right? We hear about angels and venture capital.
Yes, exactly. Angel investors are usually wealthy individuals, often experienced entrepreneurs themselves, who invest their own money in very early-stage companies. They take a big risk for potentially high returns, often providing mentorship too. Venture capital, or VC, comes from firms or funds that pool money from various sources to invest in promising startups and young businesses that have high growth potential. They often invest larger sums than angels, take a significant equity stake, and usually get involved at a slightly later stage, looking for substantial returns. A newer phenomenon is crowdfunding. Using online platforms, companies can raise money from a large number of people, each contributing a small amount. Sometimes it's donation-based, sometimes people get early access to the product, or sometimes it's actual equity investment. It democratizes funding somewhat. And particularly in Islamic finance, you have instruments like sukuk. These are financial certificates, kind of like bonds, but structured to comply with Sharia law, which prohibits charging interest. They represent ownership in an underlying asset rather than debt.
Interesting. And then there's the ultimate source of capital for big companies, the stock market. How does that work for individuals?
Right, the stock market is where shares of publicly listed companies are bought and sold. When you buy stock, you gain stock ownership, a small piece of that company. These trades happen on a stock exchange, like the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ. The people who own the stock are called stockholders or shareholders. If the value of your stock goes up and you sell it for more than you paid, that profit is called a capital gain. If the value goes down and you sell for less, unfortunately, that's a capital loss. Now, beyond stocks, people also engage in saving, just setting aside money. Economists often track the savings rate, the percentage of disposable income people save. And for any saving or investment, the term yield refers to the income return you get on it, usually expressed as an annual percentage, like the interest rate on a savings account, or dividends plus appreciation on a stock.
Okay, finally, let's look ahead. The leading edge. Technology, innovation. It feels like things are changing faster than ever. We hear about the fourth industrial revolution. What's that all about?
It really does feel that way. The fourth industrial revolution is this idea that we're in a new era defined by the fusion of technologies. It's blurring the lines between the physical world, the digital world, and even the biological world. Key drivers include artificial intelligence or AI software that can reason, learn, make decisions, almost like humans in some ways, and robotics machines performing tasks automatically, especially routine or dangerous ones. Manufacturing, logistics, even surgery are being transformed.
And these aren't just small upgrades. They sound like they could be disruptive technologies.
Absolutely. A disruptive technology doesn't just improve things slightly. It fundamentally changes the game. It often creates a new market and eventually displaces established technologies or business models. Think about digital cameras replacing film, or smartphones basically killing off separate GPS devices, MP3 players, point-and-shoot cameras for most people. Netflix versus Blockbuster is a classic example. We've also seen less dramatic but still impactful tech like computer-aided design, CAD, transforming how products are designed, and computer-assisted instruction, CAI, changing education. At the heart of all this is innovation, creating something entirely new, an invention, and also improvement, making significant changes to something existing to make it better, more useful.
And with all these new ideas, inventions, creative works, protecting them becomes important. What's intellectual property?
Intellectual property, or IP, refers to creations of the mind. Things like inventions, artistic works, designs, brand names, software code, it's intangible value. Legal systems provide ways to protect it, to encourage innovation. A patent gives an inventor exclusive rights to their invention for a specific period, preventing others from making, using, or selling it without permission. Copyright protects original works of authorship, books, music, movies, software code. It grants the creator control over how their work is reproduced and distributed. Of course, the flip side is the challenge of piracy, the illegal copying and distribution of patented or copyrighted material. It's a constant battle, especially in the digital age.
It certainly is. Okay, what a sweep of topics. To bring it all together, let's look at the entrepreneurial spectrum, from the lone wolf to the global empire builder. What really defines an entrepreneur and the whole process of entrepreneurship today?
At its core, an entrepreneur is someone who sees an opportunity, takes a calculated risk, usually financial but also reputational, to start and manage a business, aiming for profit. And entrepreneurship is that whole dynamic process, identifying the opportunity, gathering resources, creating the business, managing it, bearing the risk. It often starts with a startup, a brand new venture designed for growth.
And those startups need a plan, right? And a way to sell the idea, the business plan and the pitch.
Absolutely critical. The business plan is the detailed roadmap. What's the concept? How will it operate? Who are the customers? What are the financial projections? It forces clarity. The pitch is often the make-or-break moment, that concise, compelling presentation of the business idea, usually delivered orally or via video, aimed at convincing investors, partners, or early customers. But startups don't always get it right first time. Sometimes they need to pivot. That means making a fundamental change in direction, maybe targeting a different market, changing the product significantly based on feedback, or learning that the initial concept was flawed. It's about adapting. Underpinning all this is opportunity recognition, that skill of spotting unmet needs or potential new product services that could form the basis of a viable business. And a tool entrepreneurs increasingly use is crowdsourcing, tapping into the collective intelligence or skills of a large group, often online, to solve problems, generate ideas, or even get small tasks done.
It seems like not all entrepreneurs are just chasing maximum profit, though. There are different motivations.
That's very true. You have ecopreneurs, for instance. Their primary drive might be environmental sustainability. They build businesses with green objectives, sometimes prioritizing that over maximizing personal profit. And then there's social entrepreneurship. This is where the business is fundamentally built around addressing a specific social problem: poverty, health, education. The social mission is baked into the core model, not just an add-on. Profit might still be important, but it serves the mission.
So it really is a spectrum, different types of entrepreneurs pursuing different goals.
Exactly. You've got lifestyle entrepreneurs. They might build a successful business, but their main goal is to support a particular lifestyle they desire. Maybe more freedom, travel, flexibility, rather than building a huge empire. Serial entrepreneurs love the startup phase. They build a company, get it established, often sell it, and then jump right into starting the next one. They thrive on the creation process. Solopreneurs are individuals who run their entire business single-handedly. They are the business. Often freelancers, consultants, or running niche online stores, leveraging technology to operate alone. At the other end, you have founders of scalable startups. These are built on big, potentially disruptive ideas, aiming for rapid growth, often targeting huge markets, maybe even global domination. Think tech giants like Google or Facebook in their early days. They need significant investment to fuel that growth. And interestingly, you can even be entrepreneurial within a big company. That's an entrepreneur. Someone working inside an established corporation who champions new ideas, develops new products or services, acting like an entrepreneur, but with the resources and structure of the larger organization behind them.
Wow. Okay. What a journey we've been on today. We've really covered a huge amount of ground, haven't we? From those fundamental economic challenges like scarcity, all the way through business structures, market dynamics, global trade, and right up to the cutting edge of tech and the different flavors of entrepreneurship. Hopefully, for you listening, you now have a richer, much more connected understanding of this vocabulary that really does shape so much of our world.
Yeah, the goal wasn't just to throw definitions at you. It was more about exploring how these terms link together, revealing some of the underlying logic, seeing those interdependencies in the economic and business reality around us. So now, maybe you're a bit better equipped to decipher the news or, participate more confidently in business discussions, maybe even see your own career path with a bit more clarity.
So, to leave you with something to think about, consider this. Given everything we've discussed, especially the incredible pace of the fourth industrial revolution, the rise of AI, all this disruptive technology, Which existing business models do you think are most vulnerable right now? Which ones seem ripe for a major pivot, or maybe even total reinvention by the next wave of those ambitious, scalable startups? Something to ponder. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.